welcome back to our 1:30 session for our week-long celebration of Computer Science Ed Week. I'm Amanda McCammon with STEM Synergy and Keep Indiana Learning, and we have been live all week bringing CS experts and resources to Indiana educators as part of the celebration of the CS Ed Week with our In-Learning Partnership, which is a collaboration with the Department of Education, the Learning Lab, and Keep Indiana Learning. So in this session, for the next about 15-20 minutes, we are going to be talking about Indiana Career Ready. I mentioned this as an Indiana resource earlier in the week during another one of our CS Ed Week celebrations and live streams when I was talking about national data. So we're going to take some time today to really dive into that Indiana Career Ready website so that you can start using it as an educator with your students in lots of different ways. There are a tremendous amount of resources in there, and then this is really where all of the Indiana data sits around workforce. And we're going to take some time diving into that, seeing what you can do with it, and then also looking at some specific Indiana specific computer science data. But I definitely want to tie back to the session that we had earlier in the week with the national data. So we're going to focus in on this site and some of these tools. And if you remember, I'm showing here on the screen my slides from the other day that you can go back and watch that on demand on the Keep Indiana Learning YouTube channel and look at the national data and the national trends around computer science and workforce development data and where those jobs are going to sit nationally and then also for Indiana. But let's take some time to dive in to the Indiana specific pieces. So I'm actually going to take you to this site. And we are going to spend some time today just walking through the site so that you can become a little bit more familiar with where to go and what you could be using as a resource with your students and where to find that information that we kind of brushed on in the other session. So within this Indiana Career Ready site, you actually just go to indianacareerready.com. And this is the homepage that's gonna pop up. Lots and lots of resources across the top here. We're not gonna really dive into that. But what we are going to do is we're going to scan down to the bottom here where you see this kind of flame picture on the bottom right. And it says in-demand jobs. We're going to click on that. And as you can see on this homepage, lots of other information. And we'll come back to that here in just a few minutes. So once you get into the Indiana Career Ready site with the in-demand jobs, these are the hot occupations for the state of Indiana specifically. And we talked in our last session about workforce development and computer science, about how they calculate these. I'm not going to go into that in great depth today, but essentially it's looking at both current and future jobs. So this is the tool that you're going to want to go to really look at that in depth and also provide some really relevant real life information around workforce development for your students. So you scan down in this tool, you can see this is just how it comes up originally. Is it's going to have all the different settings here on the left under your search options, and it comes up just with all the information, and then you can filter it. So we're going to go down here on the left hand side and start to do a filter. What I'm going to start with is just showing you the different areas here. So you can go in here and actually narrow down the field from statewide to a specific area within the state. Great tool for our educators. For example, if you are out of the Columbus, Indiana area, then you can go to that and then you can filter all the other sections as well, but specifically to your area of the state. For purposes of our conversation today, I'm going to just maintain the statewide search. So I'm going to leave that as Indiana. You can put in a specific career title. I'm going to leave that blank just to kind of go through everything today with you. And then as you go down, there's lots of options for refining your workforce results. The first one here is the flame rating. So this is something I mentioned in the last session about workforce. And this is the way that Indiana calculates and displays those kind of the rankings of the jobs that are out there. So they use this flame rating, and there's information on this site, and then also in the previous session about in detail about how that's calculated. But that's what you see if you look over here to the right a little bit. You see these they look like little balls of fire. That's their flame rating, and you'll see that change as you do your search. So what that means is the more flames, the hotter it is, right? Kind of a funny way that they did that, kind of cute. So the more flames, the hotter the job is. So that means the more positions that are going to be offered, the more need that there's going to be for us to have prepared, skilled workers to be in those roles. So you can actually filter by flames. I'm going to leave that blank for right now. And then as you continue down here, you can also select education level, and obviously that's all laid out there for you. Again, I'm going to leave that blank for right now. There's a section for salary level, which is great for students to go into this tool and do some digging to learn some more information about jobs. And then the next section gets a little bit hairy because it is outlined in terms of career clusters. So there are national career clusters. And if you're in the career and technical education world, or even some of our high school students and middle school, or I'm sorry, high school teachers and middle school teachers may be familiar with career clusters, but it's really a national push around these clusters of careers. And the reason that it gets a little hairy is because one, there are skill sets, like I talked about in the last workforce development session. There are lots of skill sets embedded within computer science that thread throughout various jobs and various career fields, various occupations. So that's a little bit difficult to kind of filter it by career cluster when you're looking a little bit more in depth. Not so much by cluster, because there's so many skills that you learn through computer science that can be utilized in all of these clusters. So you have to think about that. The other thing you have to think about is the fact that computer science, when it comes down to a career cluster, is actually embedded in a couple of different places. So in looking at these career clusters here, you can see down here, I'll click it just so you can kind of see. You can see here that there's an information technology cluster. Let me go up and see if anything pops up. And look, there's nothing available in terms of data there. Doesn't mean that there's not any jobs when it comes to that particular cluster, but none labeled within that specific cluster of IT. However, if you look at, let's see here, STEM, so you have the science, technology, engineering, and math cluster, you can see here that lots of different jobs populate. I'm going to scan up here. And since this is CS Ed Week, and obviously we're focused in on CS, I'm just going to kind of scan these topics here under job title and just see, based off of the only search criteria that I have, which is that STEM career cluster, what pops up in terms of computer science. So like right here, you have computer hardware engineers. So that comes up under STEM, but does not come up as an offering within this database under IT. So that's why this section of the search bar that you can kind of filter through under career clusters gets a little confusing. So if you're going to use the career clusters part, you're definitely going to want to play around with it and not just select one criteria and only take that as, exactly what's being offered, because it may fall under a different career cluster. So just be cognizant of that as you utilize this tool. Okay, so we're actually going to stay put where I'm at. I did the search here for the career cluster of STEM. I'm going to scan up here. You can see here as you look over to the right where those little flames are. When I was talking about the flame categories and how they utilize that, you can see here some of them are grayed out. So you can see that like this one here for this engineers is 4 flame. So 4 flame obviously is less in demand than a 5 flame, so on. I'm going to go over here and under my demand look on my refined results on the left, I am going to select 5 flames and just see what happens. So per this data and per how they calculate the flames, there is not a 5 flame category under STEM. Okay. So again, that would be something you'd want to look at in terms of how they calculate the flames. But let's go to the 4 flame. And then let's go up here and take a look at what we're seeing here. So the way that it defaults for the sort is by highest demand. You can change how you want to sort those here. And you can see there what I'm highlighting with the salary, etc. I'm going to leave it as highest demand. And so within the STEM field, or within the STEM career cluster, any of the 4 flame occupations are shown here. You can see what their Indiana demand ranking is in those flames. There is a link. I'm going to show you what that does here in just a second under the job title. You can actually search job postings as well. So these are all hyperlinked here. Shows you what kind of education average salary, and then you can even click on another link for training. So we will cover kind of all of these. So let's go to the one that we saw here that would be considered computer science. So now, again, we're at the 4 flame level. Okay, so some of those may have been 3. So we've got engineers, talking computer science. Of course, computer science is embedded in lots and lots of these. And I don't see any here. We're only page 1 of 1. So let's go to 3 flames and see what else pops up. Okay, so you see that you can only search here either three flames, 4 flames, 5, but one at a time. So when I select a flame at all, it's going to only limit that to the 3. So instead of doing 3, let's just do any. So now those 4 flame ones come back up. So let's go down and find a computer science related, specific computer science related. And we're going to click this little box right here. And if you were to look up at the top, it says that you can compare them. So that's what that box is. So I'm going to grab that one. And you see it pop up here on the bottom. Make sure that this is communicating well. Yep. You see it pop up here on the bottom of the things that we're going to compare. So that's what those boxes are. Is I'm going to be able to compare that. And then let's find another computer science one here. Let's do, let's see, computer science. Find one in here. So now you can see our ratings are going down. So you have down to 2 and 1. I'm sure I passed another one. Let's do, of course, a lot of these have computer science related work embedded. Mathematician, material scientists, engineers, economists, conservation, lots of things. Okay, so let's just, for fun, let's just pick aerospace. We just had NASA on, so I'm a little obsessed right now with aerospace. So let's pick aerospace. Lots of computer science embedded into that. You'll see here down here at the bottom that those 2 occupations popped up because I clicked that little box for compare. So if I go to compare, just a second here to think. It's going to provide me with essentially all the information that you can find across those occupations within the previous screen into a nice little chart so you can compare them. There's also going to be some links here to give you some more specifics on those jobs. So here I'm just comparing computer hardware engineers and aerospace engineers, and you can see salary, the average time that it takes to fill those positions, degree, experience, etc. There's also projected openings. So that data is what goes in the 10-year projected openings data and the 10-year expected percentage change. All of those kinds of things, along with other things, go into those flame ratings. So you can see who licensed, if there's a license available for that particular occupation, who the licensing agency is, and whether or not there's a license required as well. So that helps you gain some additional information around that. If I go back up to this comparison, you can see here that I can click, these are hyperlinked. I can click on that title of the job, and I'm going to do that. So I'm clicking on computer hardware engineers. And this should pop up with some additional information about that type of occupation. This is really great for our students as they dive into gaining some additional information about what the job actually looks like, because if they can't see it, they can't be it. So this is one way to give them a little bit more information and experience around what that job could actually look like. Also within these sites, once you dive into the actual occupation, then you can get some additional information around the salary, the degree, and this is actually linked here. Let me open it up into a new tab so I can show you. It's linked here for some additional information about the degree. And even within the position, you can then filter it again. So if you remember at the very beginning when you're in the site, you can filter your original search from statewide down to a specific region of the state. You can do that once you've actually done some additional filtering. So for example, here I had filtered down to those 2 jobs that had computer science related pieces to it. And now once I'm in there, I clicked on that hyperlink, went to that specific job for computer hardware engineers, read about it, learned about it. And then I could even go in here and filter to see, okay, I live in Bloomington. I want to see what kind of job postings there are in my area. Really helpful for students to make it more relevant to them, to say, okay, well, there might be, jobs in the state of Indiana within this area, but what does it look like where I actually live? Also, the same thing with training programs. You can't filter the training programs, but you can go in there and take a look at those. There's additional information, which is amazing down here for skills. And I want to point this out because it really calls out being creative and using critical thinking, problem solving, things like that as essential skills to these jobs. So all of these jobs that are listed within the Indiana Career Ready site have these skills profiles. And this is a great way also to tie it back to and tie real world jobs that are out there available and paying well within the state of Indiana back to what you're teaching in your classroom. So when you're talking about the importance of being able to solve problems and the importance of creativity or written communication, for example, oral communication, you're asking your students to give presentations and speeches and they don't really want to. Well, here is a way that you can show them why it's so valuable and important and how it's tied to a job that they may very well be interested in. And it's going to be available and pay really well when they get out of school. You can also dive over here into the right for some additional information about the job duties and responsibilities. So you can take a look there. Lots of great information. I love this section when you're using this as a tool with your students in the classroom because you can tie it directly to what it is that they are learning about. Then there's some additional real-time job posting statistics down here. These are actual postings that are out there live right now, tied to this specific occupation for the state of Indiana. So you can look down here for some additional information specific to the postings that are out there right now. It even gives you a little bit more information on, they come down in the pull down menus as well, about any related licensing requirements. And this actually shows you some Indiana code language, which again, especially for our middle school and high school students, as they really get into the nitty gritty of occupations, they can get in and see, okay, why is that license required for me to do XYZ job? I'm interested, the jobs are out there. It's within a salary range that I think would help, with the lifestyle that I want to lead as an adult. Why do I have to have this license? And because those licenses are often tied back to a professional licensing agency, you can show them that tie. You can show them that tie to our state and to our legislature and requirements as well. So again, just a wealth of information in here if you dive down and drill down into those specific positions. I also wanted to show when I clicked on the education piece how it takes you to a separate site to really dive into those specific educational requirements. All right, so let me go back here to the site. Give me just a second. And so this is back on the original page that you go to. Let me get rid of this filter. So when you're here, again, you can filter on the left-hand side down to your specific area, flame types, job types, educational level, salary level, et cetera, et cetera. So lots and lots of ways for them to filter. You can also, just because this is sorted currently as the highest demand, so without any information on the left-hand side filtering it, these are highest in demand for the state of Indiana. So accountants and auditors, highest demand. Next, followed by acute care nurses. Excuse me. If I click on that, acute care nurses, it's going to take me back to, similarly to what I showed you in the last screen, the page and the information specific to RNs. Okay. So again, you can filter this and look at information lots and lots of different ways. And it's a great resource and a great tool for your students in various levels, whether you're teaching elementary, middle school, or high school. Great way for them to do their own research and a great way for you to utilize some of those skill sets to tie why it's so valuable to learn the things that you're learning in your classroom back to real world jobs that are right here and available in Indiana. So that is what I wanted to cover today. I definitely want to tie you back to the previous session earlier this week for CS Ed Week as well, where we talked about national data, national statistics around workforce and computer science specifically. And then obviously this site here with Indiana Career Ready, I would definitely encourage you to take a look at that, dive in, utilize it with your students, and also utilize it. I know we have one day left, but in looking at some possible job opportunities here in the state of Indiana for your students and what skills they would need in order to be prepared for those and how you could embed those into your classrooms. So thank you again for joining us today, and we will be back here live at 2 o'clock for another session. See you soon.